Welcome to another Tutor Short provided by the Educational Support Services Department of Lehigh Carbon Community College in Schnecksville, PA, just outside Allentown. These videos provide key learnings for English and other writing-based courses provided here at L-Tri-C. Please remember that the Educational Support Services Department does provide walk-in tutoring 5 days a week. Online writing tutoring is also available through the college website. Today we're going to be talking about pre-writing. Pre-writing is any writing that you do for your paper before you actually start writing the paper itself. It's a great way of mapping out what your argument is going to be, what your argument is going to consist of, what your support is going to be. In other words, rather than getting through the entire paper, getting to the end of the paper and realizing, oh crap, I've got an entire page in here of useless material that doesn't reinforce my argument in any way, you can make sure ahead of time that you don't have support like that and get rid of it in the pre-writing stage rather than writing all those paragraphs and then having to delete them and rewrite them and replace it with something better. It's also a good way of reviewing your thesis statement and fine-tuning your overall argument. So it's a way of making sure that the single statement of what you're trying to prove with your paper is reinforced by and is a good summary of the other stuff that you're going to be talking about in your paper. Pre-writing is actually a word that encompasses a number of different techniques, from the very loose brainstorming stage to a much more sort of rigid and refined outlining process. We're going to be touching on a number of different techniques today, going from loose to more restricted, all of which are techniques that you can pick and choose as you like. None of these are required techniques or the true way of doing things. It's just a good potential place for you to start when you're not sure where to begin your paper. So let's start with that most basic technique of brainstorming, coming up with basic ideas. A lot of students, I find, tend to gravitate towards sort of hot-button political issues, stuff that they've seen in the news, because they think that that will make for a strong, compelling argument. Not necessarily. Remember that this is a paper that you're going to be spending quite a bit of time on, so it might actually be better to pick a topic that you are personally very interested in. A good way of starting that is to ask that first question. What do you want to know? What are you interested in finding out? What do you find compelling? And you can even look to your daily life for these sorts of topics. Like, the first thing, as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking to myself, well, what do I want to know more about? What do I want to spend a bunch of time researching? The first thing that's coming to my mind is, well, maybe video games would make an interesting topic. Now, this might be a little surprising because it's not what you might think of as a typical scholarly paper subject matter, but just about anything can be analyzed in a scholarly way. Just about anything can be given a scholarly treatment as long as you write solid enough arguments and have strong enough sources that you're working from. Now, let's look at this big picture here. What's the big picture in this? Well, stepping back and looking at the big picture, I think that video games might be too broad of a topic. There's not really an argument here yet. I know I want to do something about video games, but even something like, well, video games are really good, that's not really a very good argument because it's huge. There's no way you're going to be able to cram that entire argument into a short paper. So let me think about what else I might be interested in knowing. What about video games and economics? That could be kind of interesting. There's a lot to talk about there, about buying and selling of video games, new markets, publishers. There's publishers, of course, in America and in Japan that are very large, but there's also growing publishers in Germany and in South America. These are things that we might be able to talk about with economics. And again, I'm not coming up with an argument yet. I'm just sort of brainstorming what kind of topics might be interesting to me. What about violence in video games? That's pretty common to see in the news these days. This question of, are video games too violent? Should they be restricted somehow? Are they the cause of actual violence in society? That's potentially an interesting question. We could look at maybe video games and education. What do video games do as a teaching tool? This could be pretty interesting, considering that, well, I mean, obviously right now I'm using YouTube videos to teach you guys writing. I'm very interested in how new media like this can be used to support the traditional classroom style lecture sort of education style. So this is potentially pretty interesting to me, and I can see that being interesting to a reader as well, if my reader is a college professor. What about video games and just simple enjoyment? Video games and fun. What makes them fun? What makes them compelling? What makes people want to play these games? This is, again, something that might come as a surprise to you, but it's something that we can write about academically, and there have been academic papers written about this as far as what we find enjoyable in video games, what makes them interesting to us. So we've got some good topics here, so now let's narrow them down a little bit. I'm a little concerned with this last topic that I just added, that there's some research, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find enough research. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to make a compelling enough argument, or that there's enough of an understanding of what we like about video games to make this into a strong paper. So I'm going to cross that off the list. This question of why do I want to research this? Also, when I'm looking at violence, I'm thinking, the only reason I'm putting that up there is because other people are interested in it. Other people talk about it. But I'm not really that interested in this topic. I'm gravitating towards it just because I think that I might be able to find sources. And to me, that's not really a compelling reason to do it on this particular topic. So I'm going to drop that from the list as well, because I'm just not that interested in that question. Economics and education. Well, economics, again, I'm a little concerned that I might not be able to find or understand the sources that I am finding. I'm not an economist. I'm not well versed in economic theory, so this might be a little bit advanced for me. If I zoom back out to that big picture that we talked about, I'm just a little concerned that this is going to be over my head if I'm an English 105 student. Might not be. You might feel differently. I feel like, for me, that's pushing it a little bit. So that pretty much leaves me with video games and education, which is something I'm really interested in. I think there is research on this. My audience, as far as whether or not my audience should care, well, I'm writing to an academic audience. I'm writing to people that are in education. I think that they're going to find this very interesting. So, potentially, this could even be a good way of promoting the idea of video games as education to a college professor. That's kind of cool. I like that. So, we're going to pick this as our topic. So, from here, we're going to work on taking our brainstorming to the next step of pre-writing, which for us today, I'm going to show you the bubble method.